This afternoon we come together to remember Bob and all that he has meant to us and to celebrate his life. And I want to thank the members of the Planning Committee who organized today's tribute. For those of us who were coping privately, the opportunity to come together and remember Bob publicly and to express our love and support to his family that is gathered with us this afternoon. I believe Bob would find great joy in this gathering, certainly not because of the personal focus, but because he was a tireless promoter of his music program. And while we're thinking of him this afternoon, I believe he would have been thinking, wow, what a venue to showcase my bands. For Bob, it just couldn't get any better than that. And while as a Lindbergh family, we would much prefer to be celebrating his nearly 20 years of contributions to the school district and its students, rather than attending this memorial tribute. I'm sure it comes as no surprise to any of you that Bob loved to travel. The more exotic the destination, the better. Paris, Pasadena twice, Hawaii, San Diego, just for starters. But Bob didn't like to travel alone. He would always take at least 200 other folks with him, plus a whole retinue of band parents. For Bob, it was never just a band trip. It was a musical movement that surpassed anything that anybody else had ever realized and know that could happen. I actually believe, given enough time, Bob would have found a way to circumnavigate the globe with his band. Yet while loving the international and national spotlight, I happen to believe that some of Bob's most favored destinations were closer to home. The opening day staff meeting, graduation, a night of patriotic music in the fall, as well as the Memorial Day tribute at Johnny's Market. On occasion, he would come up with a laundry list of professed reservations when asked to perform, but failed to ask, and you would soon hear from Bob. Bob loved the attention and the recognition that it gave to his bands. In so many ways, Bob's bands have become the face of Lindbergh School District to the community. If you knew Bob well, you knew he was not especially well organized. My awareness of the extent of this void in his skill set came many years ago at an end-of-the-year band banquet. As superintendent, on occasion, I accused Bob of not liking grass. As a district, we would painstakingly and at great expense plant grass in the spring, lovingly feed and water it all summer long, only come September to have Bob Spiegelman assemble 200 of his most accomplished musicians and in one short week annihilate it completely. I even suggested that his whole strategy of taking his band to Camp Lakewood in early August was simply to get ready for the assault on the practice fields. I wish, before Bob left us, that we could have challenged his mettle with artificial turf to see what would have happened. As you might well imagine, there was a love-hate relationship between Bob and administration. As superintendent, I loved what Bob did and for the band and the music program in general. It was incredible. But as much as I loved the upside, I did, however, hate to see Bob show up at my office, never with an appointment, always between 4 and 4:30 in the afternoon or later, always with a hangdog look, accompanied by that sly smile with the phrase, "We need to talk." Now, you all need to know I did not need to talk with Bob at 4 to 4:30 in the afternoon because I knew that my chats with Bob always came with a price tag. I knew I was really in trouble when Bob would also add the phrase, "And can I close the door?" This was a dead giveaway that it was going to be a high 5 or 6-figure request from the band. The subject might change: more equipment, new uniforms, an expanded band room, a designated practice field, or a new music lab one visit to additional personnel the next. And you know, over his years in Lindbergh, he got them all. Bob considered the district's reserve fund his personal band account. And he was determined to access it on each and every occasion of one of those visits. And I also found it fascinating that my 3 assistant superintendents, Rick Francis, Pat Lane, and Nancy Rathjen, either individually or singly, would show up immediately after Bob left and ask, "How much is it going to cost us this time?" Intuitively, it seemed everyone in the central office knew when Bob was in the building. To be fair, I also sensed a certain reciprocity on Bob's part. I knew he hated to see me show up at his band room door, always unannounced, always wanting to chat, because he knew the visit inevitably came with another request for a community performance, one where I had already promised the community group that sure, our band would be happy to perform. Yet I also suspected he loved those visits because it was an affirmation for Bob as a band director and for the respect in which the community and everyone held his band. It was a source of genuine pride. Bob was not above, however, letting me hang for a while before responding, reminding me on more than one occasion of just how busy he and his bands were and how much more they needed to really get the job done. I am also convinced that he got some sort of perverse pleasure in seeing a superintendent squirm and look forward to the added leverage it gave him on his next visit to my office. For those of us who worked with Bob, from our perspective, or on many occasions for Bob, from his perspective, he was so much more than a band director. He was the ultimate music educator. Bob loved his marching band, and he reveled in his symphonic band. Jazz band held a very special place for Bob next to his heart, as did his electronic music lab. During his nearly 2 decades in Lindbergh, Bob transformed the band program into one of incredible stature. The results of his efforts were nothing short of spectacular, not just in terms of size and scope of the program, but his ability to add a musical note to the lives of so many of our students. Bob and his band attracted students because band, for Bob, was more than a class or a performance. It was all about providing a musical experience that those who participated would never forget. It became, for so many of our students, the beginning of lasting friendships, a source of belonging in a large high school, and a family away from home, along with the opportunity for creative musical expression. Bob left us far sooner than we could ever have imagined. But he left us with a band program far greater than we could ever have dreamed. And from his Lindbergh family, we can offer no greater tribute to Bob and to his family and to his community to say, and his bands play on as they are today.